Hey guys, it's Barrett with the Gimpy Camper. So today we're going to go over something just a little bit different than our usual content. So now, before you have a chance to complain, you got to bear with me for just a minute because this actually does tie into our normal niche, but I do have to explain it a little bit. So in this video, we are going to go over a recent project, which was to restore a third generation 4Runner. This 4Runner special to me as it was my grandfather's. He actually bought it new 25 years ago. He passed it down to my mom, and now I have possession of it. So this 4Runner is overall in great condition for its age, but it does have some issues. I wanted to go through it, restore it, so it will continue to be a great car for us for years to come. When I say it fits into our niche a little bit, you know, a lot of people do use these SUVs to go like car camping and stuff like that, but I'm actually tying this in more with a project that I got coming up for the Ram, the tow vehicle that we've had for a few years. It's about paid for, and I really want to give it a good facelift. And so I've got this evil, diabolical plan, which is to essentially paint it with some bed liner. I've got a lot of projects like that coming up. This is the first one. I wanted to start kind of low and increase the intensity of these projects kind of as a stepping stone, so that way whenever I get to the big truck, I kind of know what I'm doing. And I think that my plan's working out pretty good. So I've done this 4Runner, and I'll show you just a sneak peek right here. And I've done a Honda Pilot, which will be a video that's coming out next for you guys. I did a full body paint job with Raptor liner on it, and I couldn't be happier with it. It is a little bright and loud, but it's for our business, and so that's why. And so a lot of people are like, what did you paint it that color for? I actually think it looks pretty good, but especially when it ties into our business colors, it makes a lot of sense for us. Now, like I say, we're going to talk more about that later, but let's get back to the 4Runner right now. So the most dramatic change that we made to the 4Runner is we sprayed the bumpers, the rocker panels, the fender flares with Raptor bed liner. We decided to go black. I know a lot of you guys are interested in that, and we'll get there, but let's start with the beginning of the project on this car. So we started by cleaning it up because it's been a little neglected over the last few years. You know, the first issue was that the moonroof wouldn't open and it was stuck closed. And the rear window also would barely go up and down. So it took me a little bit, but after playing with it for a few minutes, I was able to get both of those to move in and out just by using some silicone dry lube, as well as, you know, just trying to help it work back and forth and cleaning the tracks out a little bit. But I was able to free them both up. Now they both work great. Now the biggest issue on the body was a dent in the end cap of one of the bumpers on the passenger side. Now I did replace this with a black one, as I already told you what our eventual plan was. There was also a rust spot just above the bumper right under the taillight. And I was kind of torn between covering this area under the taillight with a bed liner and just extending that up a little bit to the taillight, or using some touch-up. Ultimately, we decided to touch the paint up, and I went online and found some paint, and I actually bought like a 2-ounce thing of paint, some clear coat, and some stuff like that, so that we did it right. It wasn't just a paint marker because it was like a couple inches in diameter. So what I did was I got a wire brush on a drill, and I just kind of went over that rusty spot, got all the rust off, cleaned it really good. I went over it with some degreaser, then I put some of that touch-up paint on. I did 2 or 3 coats of that, and I put some clear coat on it. You can still see it at an angle. It actually, when I was painting it, didn't look like it was covering that much. But whenever you stand back and you see it, like if you go to a different direction, you don't see it. And I think it's more the shadows because it's a little bit concave right there still. Overall, I'm happy with that repair. And while it may not look perfect, it looks a lot better than the rusty kind of stripe that was hanging down there. So I got that all taken care of. You know, I forgot to say this, but after I went over it with the wire brush, I did sand that area a little bit. And the proper way would be to try to get the dent out, which it's right around that curve. It's going to be about impossible. Try to get the dent out and then, you know, spray the area. That's just kind of a little bit more than what we wanted to do. We do have one tiny little speck of rust on the very back hatch, but I wanted to see what this looks like. I may go ahead and fix that one on the back hatch before too long as well. I also changed the radiator because that's apparently the Achilles heel of these machines. You know, there's a small transmission cooler that's built into the bottom of the radiator, and apparently it's got some plastic components, and as they get old and age, then those walls can break and the radiator fluid, the coolant, can mix with the transmission fluid. That gives you something that they commonly refer to as a strawberry milkshake. That's very bad. So if you ever see that, that means that your transmission's more than likely going to have quite a bit of work done to it or get replaced. And you know, the radiator's just a couple $100. It was cheap insurance. The one that I used was the one that was recommended the most on like forums and stuff. It was a Denso model, and I actually got it off Amazon. I'll put the link to that down below. And it wasn't too hard to get hooked up and everything too. There's plenty of videos on YouTube about how to do that, and I did it step by step following some of the other videos and didn't have any issues. Now the next problem that can be pretty major is the lower ball joints. You know, these were 25 years old. They seemed okay, but you know, if these ball joints fail, it pulls the whole knuckle and everything, the whole wheel, everything just kind of flops over. You can find some videos of that on YouTube. It's not that great. Luckily, a lot of times the damage is when people are moving slowly, but still, that's not something I want to take a chance on. So I did buy some lower ball joints. I used the Toyota OEM ones, and they say that they actually work better than the aftermarket ones, which they are 25 years old. So I did get those replaced. You know, the problem that I had is I went to my wife's birthday party and decided to do it that night, and I had an appointment to get new tires on the thing at 7 a.m. the next morning, or 8 a.m. I had the appointment at 8 a.m. But I was trying to pull those off because I watched a video where you just kind of hit it with a hammer and it just releases. And I thought, well, that's going to be fine. Well, I kept hitting it with a hammer and it didn't release at all. It was a big old mess. I ended up having to get a ball joint puller, and but the problem was I was working on in the middle of the night. So I actually had to go home, sleep a few hours, get up, be at O'Reilly at 7 a.m. when they opened because they were the earliest, get a tie rod puller. And I actually got a couple of different versions of that. Went over to the house, finally got those things off, got them mounted back up, got it over to the store, and luckily they still put my tires and stuff on, even though I was about an hour and a half, 2 hours late. So the issue with the lower ball joints is I wanted to do them before I had the tires put on, because to put the tires on, I needed to have the wheels aligned, and you don't want to be messing with those suspension components after that. You want it done before. So that's what the big rush was, to get that done. Now also in that rush, I had it on my to-do list to look at like the bushings and stuff for all the steering controls and everything, and I didn't make it through to that part. And so when I had the tires put on, they actually told me when I went to do the alignment that the bushings were bad and I had to change those. I ended up just paying them to change them so that I could go ahead and get everything done. But it was rather expensive, and I should have just did it while I was in there. But again, I was late for my appointment already. So, you know, I try to be handy and do things I can do, but I didn't quite make it to that one. Also, when I had the tire shop mount the new Cooper tires, I had them mount them on some wheels that I bought off of Facebook Marketplace. Now, these wheels were originally on a 2022 Tacoma. They are TRD wheels, and knowing that my plan was to paint the lower body panels with black Raptor liner, I felt like these wheels would just update it and pull everything together. And I think that it did that. I think it worked out really well. I was really happy with my decision, and I was really glad that I found these wheels for a pretty good bargain off of Marketplace. Now, before I sprayed the bed liner, I had a few things to do. I updated the radio with a Pioneer dual head unit that I thought had wireless Apple CarPlay, and that's the whole reason I spent all that money on it, but apparently it doesn't. I also did add an external microphone. I also installed a custom backup camera. Now, I actually got a flush mount camera. I used a hole saw to drill a hole into the bumper, and so I flush mounted it in there. I'm very happy with the way that turned out, and it looks kind of spot on if you ask me. As far as on the inside, the only other update that I did was I mounted a USB power station which was compatible with USB-C and USB-A. And then to finish up the mechanical portion, we had the oil change when we bought all 4 tires. We got a certificate for free oil change, so I did have them do that. And so I was going to take advantage of that. However, I did go ahead and I flushed the transmission fluid, I flushed the power steering fluid, I flushed the brake fluid, and I flushed the front and rear differential and the transfer case, all new fluids on everything. And I also put all new wipers on the car, and I tried to give the engine just a little gentle cleaning without getting too much water in there. And after all that other work was done, my daughter helped me prep the bumpers, the rocker panels, the fender flares, all for the Raptor liner. Now in hindsight, I wish I would have removed these panels, as we did have an issue with the rubber trim on the fender flares. You know, first of all, that rubber trim was more of the silver color and not black, so I can always change it for black. But we taped off the whole car that we didn't want to paint, and so we taped it off with plastic, and then we went back and we used a red filament brush and a drill to go over all of these panels just to scuff them up real good. And so that way it would give the Raptor liner a better bonding surface. And that's one of the things that I'm going to get into in the next videos about how well these red filament brushes work. You know, it is important to know that I washed these panels and cleaned them with Purple Power degreaser before and after I went over them with the filament brush though. And then we sprayed U-Pole number 4 adhesion promoter to all of these panels, which is going to help it stick a lot better. Anytime you do plastic panels, it's recommended that you use the adhesion promoter. I have sprayed Black Raptor before, but when I did it on the back of my truck, you know, it's been a while, and I decided to try using this custom coat variable gun, which I would not recommend. I do like the Raptor variable gun, which I used on the next car. A lot of people like the standard gun that comes with the kit, but to me it's easier to get that finer texture that I was going for with a variable gun. Now that didn't really work out as well with this black on this car, because the variable gun was a piece of, you know what I mean. So what happened a lot was, as I was pulling the trigger back, the trigger mechanism was very cheap, and the handle would just slide to the side and just cause you to not be blowing paint anymore. And I hated it. I threw it away as soon as I got done with the job, even though I bought it just for that. Now, some of the kits on Amazon actually come with that clear coat variable gun. I would not use it. I would not. I would go ahead and get the variable, the Raptor variable, the professional gun. It's a lot more money, but I had a lot more luck out of it. And I really think that it helps save you some material rather than just using the regular Schultz gun, which is the standard gun that comes with most of the kits. I will say that I used 6 bottles of Black Raptor for this project. For all of you that don't know, Raptor is a polyurethane epoxy. So you have to mix it with a hardener, and then you only have about an hour to spray it. And if you've never used it before, this can make you very nervous and just make you rush through. Try to not do that. You know, we did spray 2 full coats on the panels, and then we did a 3rd coat, which we call a drop coat. The drop coat is just a very light coat, and you do it from like 2 or 3 feet away. You do it from further away, and you just kind of swirl it, and that prevents what we call tiger striping, where you can still see the lines where people paint. And so it just makes the texture look more uniform, kind of brings it all together. Even when using the basic gun, you can have a varying texture just by adjusting the spray technique or how much air you're using. But the only problem was that trim on the fender flares. Like I said, it was silver, and when I pulled the tape off, I did have some areas that it showed just a thin strip of white were silver. It looks white next to the black. When I asked for some help in a Facebook forum, they said that I probably did it while it was too hot. I probably should have waited more in the evening, which I did wait until the evening. A lot of people say do it at night, but they also say that you might not want to wait the full hour when it's real hot. You just want to wait until that Raptor liner's flashes off, where you can just barely touch it and it not stick to your finger, and go ahead with the next coat. And then it's very important that you want to remove all of that tape while the Raptor liner's wet. that is supposed to help cut down on these issues too. And another thing that I didn't mention is before I sprayed the Raptor liner, I went over those tape lines with the adhesion promoter too, because that's supposed to help give you a more cleaner pull from the tape as well. Now, like I say, I figure worst case scenario, I can always replace this trim on the fender flares with black. I can always recoat them. It's not too big of an issue. Truthfully, I was afraid these fender flares are 25 years old, and I was afraid the plastics were probably going to break when I took them off, causing me to have more issues. I did also forget to mention that we removed the roof rack, which had a lot of fading and failed paint, and we sprayed them with the Raptor liner at the same time that we sprayed the body. I am happy with the way that the roof rack turned out. So after everything cured for a few days, I used some butyl tape on the bottom of the rails, and then I placed some sealant in the roof holes. Then we got all the crossbars in place, and then was able to use the factory screws to reattach the rails in the same manner that they were originally installed. Now I will say that was more of a pain because you actually had to have a lot of those side rail, you had to have those nuts and stuff in there first, and I didn't put that in. So it was kind of an issue where I had to take it on and off a couple of times to get everything to work right. Now I did go over the edge of the fender flare with a paint touch-up marker, which seems to have at least temporarily fixed the issue and took a lot of that issue away that I had where it showed the silver line there. And after this, we did go over the whole car with some rubbing compound. I put it on with a buffer, and my daughter, I had her buff it off by hand. And after that, I warned her multiple times about being careful not to get the paste wax when we use it on the Raptor liner, which I did myself apparently and got it all over the place. So I guess I'm the one that really needed the speech. But I guess it'll wear off eventually. I tried using some degreaser to scrub it off, but I didn't really want to be too hard on it since that Raptor liner was pretty new. But it looked like it was coming off, and when you rinsed it off, but then when it dried, you can still see the wax residue. Oh well, it's one of those things that'll look better in a little bit. All in all, I'm very happy with this project. It has just brought this car back to being pretty updated, pretty modern. And the biggest issue that I have now is that little bit of extra wax, and which is okay. I will say that there are some small hale spots on the hood as well, which I could always get a new hood for it if I wanted to. But, you know, you have to say at the end of the day, it looks pretty darn good for a 25-year-old truck. So, like I said before, how does this fit in with our channel? Well, I decided that I'm going to be painting my tow vehicle with 100% Raptor liner. I feel like there's a lot of people out there that are getting some of these trucks now that are just a little bit older, have some paint issues. This is a durable finish, and it can be done DIY in whatever color you want. Yes, about any color you can imagine, you can tint the Raptor liner. And I will say that this tintable version, which is what I used to paint the Honda with, and is what I'm going to paint the other car with, I actually have a sponsor called Velocitint, and they sponsored the tinting, the color for the Raptor liner for the next two projects, and I'm very happy with it, and you'll be hearing more about them. So like I say, you can paint this about any color you want with the tintable Raptor liner, and Velocitint actually has over 100 different colors, but you can even color it the same color that your car was from the factory with the paint coat. You know, so this was step one in the process. Step two was to do the full body Raptor paint job on the Honda Pilot for my wife's freeze-dried candy business. So we actually just completed that, and I'll be loading a lot of pictures of that up with a video here shortly. And I learned a lot of my technique there, and you know, then I'm going to be able to transform the Ram from plain white to a different color. I think I'm going with some type of like an olive drab and black, but I have also thought about silver or desert tan, so we shall see. We shall see. Thanks for showing interest in this project, as it has been a lot of hard work, but I think it will serve my family well in the coming years. And guys, like I say, when I get to this truck, I'm going to do it step by step. I'm going to do DIY, show you how it's done. And I did learn valuable lessons all along the way. And especially with this Honda Pilot that's coming up, because I painted the door jambs and everything because I tried to make it look like it came that way from the factory. And so it's a lot of work. I got it done, and I'm super proud of this stuff, and you'll be hearing more about it whether you want to or not. But we'll see you next week, and hopefully it'll be that Honda video that we're talking about.
Do not forget to hit that subscribe button.